IFELUNOW TV. We're here today to discuss the topic of when to know when it's time to get out of toxic situations, people, things, jobs, when your life starts kind of going topsy-turvy. We just want to talk about that today. And we have here on my left, this is Sharon Flack. She comes from the financial world, and she also has a nonprofit called Mom Squared. So welcome, Sharon.
Thank you very much.
Yes. And we've known each other for over 20-some years, so we have very deep thoughts about many things. And we also have Becky Gleason.
Hey.
Becky is an artist, and she's a very wonderful woman that I've known for years. And we are really here to share our thoughts and our heart with all of you guys. So let's start off with you, Sharon. When it comes to toxic relationships or just toxic jobs, situations, give me your take on that.
Well, and I'm glad we've been in a couple of, I'm glad we've known each other for a long time, because we've shared a lot of these situations that some I've been in, some of the toxic work situations that I've been in. But the very first things that I have found, and I've made lots of mistakes in relationships. First thing I think that is helpful is to, before you place the blame on anyone else, is to stop, calm down, and do some internal observation to see if there's anything that you yourself might be bringing to the table that's causing the relationship to be toxic in the first place. And then go from there. And if it starts with you, then you'll know what you can do to fix it. And then if you're being negative, if you have those negative thoughts, if you're putting out those negative vibes, then you can stop that. And once you stop that, maybe you'll be surprised to see that that might alleviate the situation, and that negative situation might actually go away. So that might just be the first step in taking a look at how to handle the situation. I found that to be helpful for me.
Awesome. And you, Becky, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I totally agree with you, and it's funny, I don't know if it's human nature, but that wasn't the first thought that came to me, like, yeah, I should take a look at myself, huh? But wow, I mean, what a practical, like almost obvious thing to do, because we all have our devils, and we all have our bad habits. We have ways that we sabotage things that we don't even realize that we're doing. So yes, I totally agree with you. Stop, take a look at what's happening. In research that I've taken a look at, toxic relationships, it seems to me that if you don't feel good when you're with a person, if you feel less than yourself, if you feel frustrated, if you feel less worthy somehow, if you leave with a bad feeling about yourself, that's one way that you can, I'm in a toxic relationship here. Why am I here? So I guess I would second that by saying, why, ask yourself, evaluate, why are you in that relationship at all? And really evaluate what it means to you and why you've stuck around.
That's a good point, both of what you're saying, just piggybacking on that. When I think about toxic relationships or toxic things or situations, we can't control anybody but ourselves.
Right.
We have no control on people, on things, situations, or we have limited control. So I found that when you do that internal investigation and start looking back and connecting the dots, what are your habits? What are the things that you do on a daily basis or a weekly basis that allows somebody to come across certain boundaries that you desire to have? And maybe you haven't even set the boundaries with anybody, so they don't even know that they're crossing the boundaries.
Yes.
So,
Very good point.
Right. So what you'll have to do is take stock of yourself. And sometimes it is a very long conversation with yourself in the mirror, and sometimes that process can just be, you know how sometimes you have these positive affirmations that you
Yes.
put every day.
Yes.
You know, that's a habit, you know, that we're doing now. Give yourself a positive affirmation. When you're doing those internal checks on yourself, you can look at yourself and say, well, maybe this is a line in the sand that I don't want anyone to cross. And I find that when I let someone cross that line, this relationship ends up being toxic. When I allow someone, for instance, to ask too many personal questions about my children, or if I let someone, or if I share too many secrets about my past life, if someone has a conversation with me and I go to the point where I feel uncomfortable on the inside, feeling like I've shared too much, if I've passed my own line. So if you put those things up every day so that when you go out, you see them, you see those markers for yourself, those are positive checkpoints for you, teaching you how to communicate so that you don't allow yourself to enter into a place where a relationship can be toxic.
And Becky?
More great advice from Sharon. Again,
I've had a lot of experience with this.
I mean, you know, I do put up those little things on my mirror and things like that. Never thought about putting up one about boundaries. We all need to have boundaries. I probably haven't stopped to identify what my personal boundaries are. What a useful thing to do. So you give yourself a foundation not to be, to know what those guidelines are. So you'll find yourself in less situations where you might be taken advantage of. So I think that is a really good thing to do. Again, like I said, if you're in a toxic relationship, I think you have to, again, ask yourself probably how you got there, why you are maintaining it or sticking to it for some reason, and then if it's not working for you, really identify that, know that you're important enough that if it's not working for you, it's not working.
That's right.
And then plan how to get out of it in the most healthy way, probably for both of you, but I have to say, for you and your heart to take yourself out of a situation that's not good for you.
That's right.
Make an exit strategy.
And when you think about being in situations that are toxic or relationships or jobs, you want to think about what is your level of commitment? What is the level of commitment? When you're thinking about relationships and you feel like you're, 75, 25, or you're 50%, 50%, or you're 90% and they're 10%, you need to stop and think about your level of commitment. If you're willing to put in 75%, but that other person is only willing to put on 25%, you need to go back and redefine what the relationship is.
Yeah.
And you need to literally sit down and discuss that with the person, because that way they are aware that, I like being with you, I like hanging around you, we're having a great time, or, you have a great personality, but I really feel like, the level of commitment is much different. And so let's talk about, what is your objective in the relationship? And you don't want to always be so technical, but if you're putting a lot of time and energy, you do want to know where it's going to.
Right.
And when you think about that level of commitment, I can think of a little scenario. There was these 3 peanuts. Okay.
Okay.
There was 3 peanuts. And one peanut said, oh my, I would love to just have this wonderful company, and it would be so cool because we could all work at the company and we can enjoy the company and we can do the thing we love doing the best is running a business. So the other 2 peanuts were like, okay, that sounds really cool. So when it came down to doing the business, the other 2 peanuts didn't realize they had to become peanut butter. So their level of commitment was,
but that's way too much for me.
So their level of commitment was totally beyond what they had planned.
Yeah.
So they needed to find out in the beginning, well, what is my level of commitment going to be to the situation? Because you don't want to become the peanut butter. If you weren't planning to become the peanut butter, you want everybody to be part of the peanut butter. So it's a level of commitment, and you have to define what is that level of commitment.
That's right. And let's just take a brand new friendship or a dating relationship, okay? You meet this guy or you meet this girl at a place, and you connect eyes, you feel some sort of connection one to another, and he's smiling at you, and maybe wink an eye, and you with your girlfriends, you're like, girl, he's looking at me. And you wink your eye at him. He comes up and he's just handsome and gallant, and he says, hello ladies, and may I please have your phone number? And you say, sure. So you give him your phone number, and you're waiting for him to give you a call. So he gives you a call, you make a date, and you go out on a date. And the date's really good. And so you just kind of have a date. You don't talk about any expectations. You eat your food, go home. You don't hear from him for 3 days. So you're like, well, I wonder what's going on. So you call him back, and you're really disappointed. And he's like, well, and you say, well, why didn't you call me back? He said, well, all we did was go out and have a date. Well, because you didn't share expectations, you expected so much more. You immediately thought that he was going to call you every day, and you were going to get to see each other. You might go play tennis. For him, it was just a date. He's dating other people, and he hangs around with his friends a lot. And for him, it was just a date. So in the beginning, even in the beginning of a friendship or a relationship, it's good just to have casual conversations to find out where you are in your life, so that you can set the right expectations for not just for the person you're involved with, but for yourself, because the most important person that you have to protect is yourself, because you can't take care of anyone else adequately if you can't take care of yourself.
Yes.
So that's just a little tip about those kinds of relationships.
Becky?
Expectations are everything, really. In any relationship, you've got two people, two different minds, two different motivations, perhaps. You don't know until you communicate. But with expectations, you can't communicate them until you know your own expectations and really what is it that you're looking for in any relationship. But I would say certainly like a dating relationship too. I think dating relationships are fraught with all sorts of emotion that you may not encounter if you're just like, you meet a new friend or a new person at work or something like that. Dating just has all these other considerations to be made. So again, Sharon, I agree. You have to be true to yourself, but the only way that you know is to know yourself and to communicate with another person and also respect what they're saying. It might not meet your expectations, but they're their expectations. So no right or wrong answer, except that you have to guard your heart, guard your own self. And again, back to something that becomes toxic, that's not going to lead to a good place for anybody unless somehow people can change and meet each other in the middle in a healthy way. I don't know what those odds are or percentages are, but again, you can only protect your own heart if you're in a toxic relationship.
And it's all about growth. So whether we're talking about dating relationships or you're talking about a job, commitment to school, a career, when you're trying to decide what to do, you definitely want to go back to what was your original game plan, what was your original goal, your original thought, and also listen to what people are saying. If people that are your friends or people that are close to you Now, everybody has different motivations and everybody's not for you. But if you began to start hearing a lot of things like, are you okay? You okay today? What's going on? I haven't seen you in a while. When you start hearing a lot of people that are concerned with you or for you begin to give you feedback because they're concerned, they don't understand like what's going on in your life maybe, or they're starting to say, you're okay. I noticed that you didn't look very happy the other day. You weren't yourself. And that's the biggest thing, because all of us are, walking around happy, go lucky all the time.
Absolutely.
But if they're saying, you just haven't been yourself. Now, if you're happy and you're not your old self, that's a good thing. But if you're starting to kind of go downhill,
Right.
that's a sure sign that it's probably some type of toxicity going on. And everybody doesn't want to admit to that, because sometimes you become codependent on being regular or normal, or you want to feel what you think looks normal. Right. The most important thing is that you want to be happy with yourself. That's the most important thing. That should be your life goal, because you can't make anybody else happy. You can add to their happiness, and you cannot change anyone. But if you can enhance their life, then, that's great. There's a partnership, some type of partnership there. But when you're in a toxic situation, even at a job, and you come in every day, you can barely make it. Well, we all have to work. We all need jobs. But you need to develop a game plan.
Yes.
You need to start a hobby, entrepreneurship. Nobody has time to do anything these days. Right. But you know what? If you have something other than that one thing that you have to think about and go to every day, and it's something that you're not happy about, you may not be able to leave your job, but you need to find a happy place, whether it's through a hobby or painting or just, whatever you want to do. You need to find that, and you need to begin to put energy into that, because it's going to come back to you. You're going to get a reward of energy from that as well. So even though you're in a toxic environment and you maybe not be able to change that right then and there,
right,
you're changing something that you can control and something that's going to give you happiness.
That's great. That's right, because when you are in an environment at work and it's toxic, it's just like sometimes you can literally feel the walls are pressing in on you. I remember the first job I had when I got out of college, I was very fortunate, and I had a job before I graduated, so I was very, very excited. And I got to the job, and I thought everything was going to be wonderful. But for reasons that we won't talk about on this show, we don't have enough time. We don't have enough time to talk about it, trust me. It ended up being very toxic for me, toxic to the point that my stomach began to hurt from the time I drove on the parking lot all day until the time I left. So what I started doing was, during lunch, I would walk.
Yes.
Because I had to get out of that environment.
Yes.
So I started leaving that environment and taking walks. I had a sandwich, so I'd spend half the time eating and then half of the time getting some positive air.
Yes.
Just that little bit of time out of that space can give you a fresh attitude. And sometimes you just need a little fresh attitude to get you through the rest of the day. So that's one thing that you can change while you're there. The second thing I did was I developed an exit plan.
Yes.
I changed my resume and I started looking for other jobs. So that's another thing you can do. You may not be able to control what you're doing now, but you can control your future. If your future is to leave that job, fix your resume and start applying and looking for other things. And just like Cherie said, get a hobby and let entrepreneurship be your path to a better future. So those are three
Awesome,
ways.
Shay. Becky?
Well, I'm thinking about the difference between a professional position that you might find yourself in, like that you did, Sharon, and those are awesome steps to move forward away from what you're doing. On a personal level, if you're in a toxic relationship, most professionals say that you should get away from that person and stay away from that person. If it's someone you're dating, in a romantic relationship, lots of times people who are in toxic relationships may have been in them before. If it seems new to you, you may not be with somebody who is also new to it. Those types of people who are negative or dangerous or toxic people know how to manipulate others. And you might want to get away, but you have trouble breaking away because they're like, oh, now they're going to be nice. Now they're not going to be abusive anymore. Now they're going to be the person that they really can be. But so often they know just what to say to make you stay. And what you need to do is, again, go back to your own boundaries. Go back to who you are and how your self-worth, and get out of there and stay out of there. At least you can heal in the proper way from that relationship before then you are more healthy. You're healthier to be able to move on to a more positive relationship. But again, professional, you probably shouldn't burn bridges, but you need to do something else. Personal, just get out and protect your heart.
Yes.
And let that bridge burn, huh?
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
And I want to talk about one other thing. If we look at these relationships and jobs and we think about staying centered, and it's hard to stay centered because you're always pulled and pushed in the direction that that company needs you to go in, or that relationship needs you to go in, or your children need you to go in. You almost feel like you don't have control, but you have to remember you have to stay centered.
Yes.
You have to remember who you are. So when you think about, for example, like a spinning top is constantly wobbling and it's bobbing and it's moving here and there, but it's constantly spinning. It's that inertia is just keeping it going. Just like our life, we have to keep going. We cannot stop. And then you have like the centrifugal force of like when you're trying to hold on like to a merry-go-round or a roller coaster, and the centrifugal force is like, it's keeping you on there. And then the centrifugal force and centrifugal force, one of them, anyway. That's the force that's not actually a force, but it's what you're doing to make things work. So we're keeping things intact. So how much you're using, how much energy you're using to keep hold of a situation may not be beneficial in the long run. You think that you're in control of everything. You think that you're in control, and if you just keep holding on to this situation, you have a false sense of security.
I see.
Because eventually something's going to fly off.
Right.
And what usually happens is somebody flies off the handle.
Right.
So maybe the relationship is not that bad, or maybe the job is not that bad.
Right.
But if you have a moment of craziness, you could end your job, or you could end your relationship where you didn't have to.
Right.
So you have to remember to stay centered. Take the time out, even if it's just like Sharon said, go for a little walk. If it's toxic, like Becky said, let it go. Now, it's not always easy to let it go, but develop the steps to let it go. Like they said, have an exit strategy.
Right.
Or get counseling. Go to a professional counselor.
Please.
That is, a lot of people think that going to a professional counselor is because you're less than or you're weak.
No.
But professional counselors, stars have professional counselors.
Absolutely.
On a regular basis. They have to keep themselves in check because they could try to go way over the top. And you have to remember, what goes up might come down. I'm not going to say it has to come down because all of us can grow till we die. So you have to keep centered, and whether it means going to a counselor to stay centered, reading some books to stay centered, doing a hobby to stay centered, you have to find out how you can hold it without being so tight that you cannot be flexible, or you're not allowing other people around you to be flexible as well, because it's like a living animal. Your life has to be organic. You have to be able to change and move, and people change, and you have to accept changes from other people.
Right.
Relationships change, and you know what? When you accept the changes in the relationships, it just becomes more beautiful.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely. And I was also thinking, when you were talking about the importance of counseling and therapy, you can see how important it is, because therapy is a major benefit in everyone's health insurance policy.
Yeah.
I mean,
Finally.
it is, yes.
Wasn't always that
Yes,
way,
but
finally.
now
Yeah.
therapy sessions are very inexpensive compared to what they used to be. And in most cities and states, there are programs where you can get therapy sessions for free. Absolutely free. I know here where we are, there are wonderful opportunities to have not only therapy sessions, but classes that you can take on how to learn to love yourself. If you have a problem with anger, there are anger management classes for free. There are all types of classes that help you to be a better you, and how to deal with the circumstances and the changing circumstances around you. So it doesn't mean, a lot of people think, and a lot of minority people tend to think, it means that I'm weak, it means that I'm sick, it means that there's something wrong with me. But I'd like for you to think that it means that I'm strong.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It means that I'm strong because I want to be the best person that I possibly can. And no one is a mountain. We all need each other, and we all need to know as much as we can. So talking with someone will help.
Becky?
I just think, no matter what the subject is, we learn all of our lives. And I mean, that is the best way, to me, to go through life. We can't know everything, but we can be people who seek knowledge. And not only will our lives be richer, but we will be able to move through our lives with perhaps less stress and more joy. So the want, the need, the will to learn, to constantly learn, is so important. So no matter what the subject, we have to learn. Keep learning.
Well, guys, this is our short show for today. We have totally and thoroughly enjoyed talking here today. We hope you enjoyed it. Join us again for our next little cast. And we'll be here with Sharon, and Becky, and Cherie. And we'll see you then. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us.
Okay. Yay. So now we
You
get
guys
to
are so good.
You are too. You rock too, girl.
I was just like,